Welcome to Dice and Quills, where the art of storytelling meets the roll of the dice. I am Darren Ruckle, professional game master and TTRPG writer, here to share the craft behind world building, adventure design, and running unforgettable games. Whether you're a fellow creator, an aspiring pro, or a lifelong player, you're in the right place. So sharpen your quills, ready your dice, and let's dive into the worlds we imagine. Today we're talking about how to become a professional GM. Now let's start by clarifying one thing. Being a professional GM doesn't mean you're better than someone running home games. It doesn't mean you know all the rules, have the best voices, or own thousands of minis. Being a professional means you run games in exchange for money, consistently, reliably, and with a focus on value. And that comes with its own set of expectations. If you're listening to this episode, there's a good chance you've already thought about it. Maybe your friends have told you your games are amazing. Maybe you've seen ads on Start Playing, or heard creators talking about monetizing their games. Maybe you're burned out at your day job and you're wondering, could I actually do this? The answer is yes, you can. But it's not instant. It's not easy. And it's definitely not as simple as get paid to play D&D. That phrase gets thrown around a lot, and honestly it downplays the amount of work and intention that goes into being a pro GM. So this episode is going to walk you through the real path, from the first steps to building your roster, managing your business, delivering a professional experience, and yes, staying sane while doing it. Because I've been there, juggling games across platforms, customizing every campaign, answering messages at midnight, trying to figure out how to balance creativity and income. And while I wouldn't trade it for anything, I also want to help you go into this with open eyes and a solid toolkit. Let's begin at the beginning. How do you know if going pro is even right for you? Here's the truth. Professional GMing isn't for everyone, and that's okay. If you love crafting slow burn homebrew epics over 5 years with the same group of friends, amazing. Keep doing that. But if you find yourself energized by the ideas of meeting new players, running structured sessions, and providing consistent value in exchange for real-world income, this might be your path. Start by asking yourself a few hard questions. Can you manage a schedule like a business, not just a hobby? Can you run consistent sessions without burnout? Are you comfortable with strangers paying you and holding you to expectations? Do you enjoy running the game itself, or do you mostly enjoy world building, writing lore, or just goofing off with friends? These are important questions because this work will test you. You'll need communication skills, emotional intelligence, organizational tools, and creative stamina. You don't have to be perfect at all those things right away, but you need to be willing to develop them. And here's the good news. If this resonates with you, you probably already have the foundation. You care. You think about your craft. You want to run games that matter. That's the most important step. Now let's talk about what happens next. Once you've made the decision to go pro, the first real hurdle is putting yourself out there. And for most GMs, that is terrifying. You have to market yourself. Pick a platform, write a listing, set a price. You might feel like a fraud, like you're not experienced enough or not ready. That's imposter syndrome. It's normal. It hits everyone. But here's the truth that helped me early on. You don't have to be the best GM in the world. You just have to offer your style to the right players and show up with professionalism and consistency. That's it. If you can do that, you will build an audience. So let's talk platforms. Start Playing is one of the most popular ones right now, and it's where I build most of my games. It handles bookings, reviews, scheduling, and payments. Other GMs use Roll20, Foundry, Discord, or Patreon to manage their communities. You can even build your own site if you want full control. But early on, I recommend starting with a platform that gives you traffic, something with built-in discovery, even if it takes a cut. Because until you build your name, you need help getting found. So you've decided to go pro, and you're ready to set up your first listing. This is the moment where the creative side meets the business side. And for a lot of GMs, it's the first real test. Because it's not enough to say, I run D&D. You have to make players care. You have to make them click. Let's start with your bio. This is the space where you introduce yourself to potential players. It's not the place for your life story. Keep it clear, focused, and inviting. Think about what players want to know. What kind of experience do you offer? What's your style at the table? Are your rules light and roleplay heavy? Do you run tactical, crunchy combat? Do you love voices, puzzles, horror, exploration? Talk about that. Tell them what it's like to play with you. And most importantly, be honest. Don't try to be everything to everyone. If you lean heavily into narrative and hate long dungeon crawls, say so. If you like structure and session zero prep, tell them. The players who are looking for you will find you faster that way. Next, the game listing itself. This is where you describe the actual campaign or one-shot they're signing up for. Here's what I recommend including in every listing. First, the tone. Is it a heroic high fantasy story? A dark survival crawl? A swashbuckling pirate romp? Set expectations right away. Second, the content. Give them a few lines about the setting, the premise, and the hook. Don't write a novel. Write something that sounds playable, clear, and intriguing. Third, session logistics. What virtual tabletop are you using? Do you provide character sheets, safety tools, or access to source books? How many players? How long are the sessions? How much does it cost? Be clear and professional here. Nothing turns off a prospective player like confusion or vagueness about what they're paying for. Fourth, and this is big, let them know what you bring to the table as a host. Players aren't just hiring you to run a dungeon. They're hiring you to manage time, answer questions, help with tech, keep the energy up, mediate table dynamics, and make sure everyone's included. If you offer onboarding help, custom tools, homebrew worlds, or one-on-one sessions, mention that. Those extras make a difference. Once your listing is live, you need to do two things. Get people into your first few games, and then earn strong reviews. Early on, this usually means offering discounted sessions or even free sessions for a limited time, just to build momentum. It's marketing, not underselling your worth. You're investing in visibility and reputation. Once players sit at your table and enjoy themselves, ask for reviews, politely. Don't demand them, don't pressure. Just say, if you enjoyed the session, a quick review really helps me grow. Most players who had a good time will be happy to help. Now let's talk pricing. This is one of the hardest parts of going pro, because everyone's situation is different. Your price should reflect your time, your value, and your consistency, but it also needs to match your experience and market. Most new pro GMs start at about $10 to $20 per seat per session. As you gain reviews, polish your presentation, and expand your tools, you can raise that over time. I've seen GMs comfortably charge $30 to $40 or more for high-end campaigns with music, maps, custom art, and regular prep. The important part is this: whatever you charge, deliver that value. If you're charging premium prices, your session should feel premium, not just in spectacle, but in structure. Start on time. Be prepared. Keep track of character arcs and table dynamics. Check in with the players. Be responsible and reliable. Because in professional GMing, consistency is king. Players will stick around not because you're the most creative GM in the world, but because they know they're going to get a great game every week without drama. Once your first listing is live and you've started running your early sessions, the next major milestone is building a roster. Your group of returning players, regular campaigns, and future bookings. This is where being a professional GM turns into a career rather than a one-off gig. At first, most of your games will be with new people. That's normal. You might run the same one-shot 5 or 6 times with different players just to build reviews, get comfortable on the platform, and refine your presentation. But over time, you'll notice some players coming back. Maybe they rejoin the same game. Maybe they message you directly to ask what else you're running. That's when things start to click. A returning player is gold, not just because they provide consistency, but because they already know your style, your pacing, your format. That means less onboarding time and more gameplay. So how do you encourage that? First, deliver a consistent quality experience. That's fundamental. If your session starts late, drags, or ends in confusion, people won't rebook, no matter how cool your world is. Second, follow up. Not with a sales pitch, just a simple thank you message after the session. Something like, "Thanks again for playing. I had a great time running for you. If you're ever interested in joining another session, I've got spots open on X and Y nights." You'd be amazed how many players rebook just because the GM made them feel seen and appreciated. Third, offer a clear path forward. If you ran a one-shot, let them know what campaigns you're running. If they're in a short arc, tease future developments. Players are more likely to stick around when they feel like there's a bigger journey ahead, and they're invited to be part of it. Fourth, be visible. Update your listings. Post schedules. Use social media or Discord if you're comfortable with community spaces. You don't have to become a full-time content creator, but keeping a steady presence helps people know when and where to find you. Now, what happens when you've got enough interest to fill more than one game? That's when the business side really starts to show up. Managing multiple campaigns requires more than just creativity. You need structure, a calendar that works, a way to track players' needs, character arcs, session prep, and communications. Above all, a system for protecting your time. I'll be honest with you. One of the fastest ways to burn out as a new pro GM is to say yes to every game, every idea, every time slot. It feels great at first, like momentum, but you'll hit a wall sooner than you think. That's why I recommend starting with no more than 2 regular games per week. Get a feel for the rhythm. Learn your prep limits. Learn how your energy ebbs and flows. Over time, you can add more. But build the habit of sustainable pacing first. If you're running more than one campaign, use templates. Use repeatable structures. Have a standard onboarding form. Standard pre-session checklist. Standard follow-up. Not because you're lazy, but because it frees up brain space for the parts that need to stay creative. Your NPCs, your world reactions, your improvisation. Let's talk a bit about player churn, because it's going to happen. Even if you run amazing sessions, people will leave. Work schedules change. Financial situations shift. Interests fade. That's normal. Don't take it personally. Just keep offering consistent quality games and keep your pipeline active. Eventually, you'll have a mix of regulars and rotating seats. That's a good thing. A healthy roster is flexible. It means you can keep campaigns going even if a couple people rotate out. Some GMs eventually move to private campaigns, invite-only games with long-term players. Others keep an open listing model. There's no one right path. Just make sure you're managing your schedule in a way that gives you space to be consistent, responsive, and creatively engaged. Let's talk about what actually makes a session feel professional, because players aren't just paying for a story. They're paying for the entire experience. That includes how the session is run, how it feels to be at the table, and how it's handled before and after game night. The easiest place to start is structure. A professional session starts on time and ends on time. That doesn't mean you have to be rigid, but it does mean you respect your players' time and you don't run late unless everyone is clearly on board. Before the session starts, check in with the group, confirm attendance, post reminders, send your virtual tabletop links or character sheets ahead of time. These little things show that you're organized, prepared, and thinking about the players before they even log in. Once you're in the session, open with confidence. Welcome everyone. Ask about their week. Do a quick vibe check, and then review where the story left off, clearly and concisely. This reinforces narrative continuity and helps players settle in. And then, once you begin, run the game. Not a loose hangout, not a passive show. Take initiative. Keep scenes moving. Spotlight players evenly. Reinforce their choices. React dynamically. Maintain energy. And yes, keep notes, especially for campaigns. If a player mentions their missing sister in session 2, and you bring her back 10 sessions later as an ally or an enemy, that's the kind of moment that players never forget. Because it shows you were listening, and it turns your session from fun into unforgettable. Now let's talk table safety, because professionalism means creating a table where everyone feels respected and included. Use safety tools. Even a simple lines and veils list or an X card can make a huge difference, especially when running for strangers. Make space for players to speak up if they're uncomfortable, and don't make it weird when they do. Normalize it. Also, be aware of tone. If you run gritty horror, make sure the group is okay with that up front. If you lean into comedy or romance, set boundaries. Don't assume everyone is on the same page unless you've had that conversation. This isn't just about avoiding conflict. It's about building trust. When players know you care about their comfort, they're more willing to invest in the story, take risks, and role-play deeper moments. Next, manage your pacing. This takes practice. Some GMs like a full 3-act structure every session. Others go for open sandbox flow. But whatever your style is, make sure each session has some kind of arc, a rhythm that rises and resolves. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it should feel like a complete night of story. Even in long campaigns, players should feel like they did something, not just wait around for the plot to happen. Between sessions, follow up. Share a recap, a teaser, or a thank you message. If you promised loot, send it. If someone had a moment of spotlight, mention it. These small gestures build community and show that you're present even between game nights. Now let's talk about boundaries. This is important. You are not a 24/7 NPC concierge. You do not have to be on call every hour of the day because someone thought of a character idea or has a question about tomorrow's session. Be available, but be clear. Set office hours. Tell your players how you prefer to be contacted and when. And enforce that kindly but consistently. If you don't protect your own time, you will burn out, and your games will suffer for it. Speaking of burnout, we'll be getting into that in more detail soon. But I want to say this now. You do not have to run epic, world-shaking plot lines every single session. You don't have to have perfect accents, sprawling lore, or elaborate digital maps. What makes a game professional isn't spectacle. It's consistency, structure, and care. If your players feel supported, challenged, and seen, you're doing your job. Let's talk about what separates a good professional GM from a great one. Because once you've got the basics, scheduling, communication, structure, solid game sessions, the next step is creating something truly unique. Something that reflects your voice and keeps the right players coming back week after week. Great GMs don't try to be all things to all people. They lean into what makes their tables special. They build a brand, not just a logo or a visual aesthetic, but a recognizable style, a sense of tone, pacing, and narrative that's distinct. And that starts by figuring out what kind of games you like to run. Are your sessions built on character-driven drama? Are you a master of tension, mystery, or tragedy? Do you run fast-paced, combat-heavy scenarios where every decision matters? Maybe your world building is deep and immersive, with secrets for players to uncover over time. Or maybe you thrive on improvisation, light lore, but rich with spontaneous chaos and player agency. There is no right answer. What matters is consistency. Players will come to your table expecting your flavor. So whatever you promise, follow through on it. If your listing says narrative heavy, low combat, don't run to dungeon crawl every week. If your session says horror themes, don't treat everything like a slapstick. Be who you say you are. That honestly builds trust. It also helps you attract the right players and repel the wrong ones. Let me be blunt here. Not every player is a good fit for your table, and that's fine. You're going to get players who don't gel with your style. Some will leave quietly. Others might offer feedback, kind or otherwise. Don't panic. Don't take it personally. It's not rejection, it's calibration. And that's where professional GMs shine. They learn how to respond to player feedback without sacrificing their voice. They listen for patterns. They make improvements. But they also stay true to what they do best. If a player says, I wish there were more combat, but your table is built on exploration and social roleplay, that's not your failure. That's just a mismatch. Thank them for the feedback and let them go find a better fit, while you continue refining your own experience. Now let's talk about the power of world building. Even if you're running published adventures, a great GM makes the world feel lived in. That doesn't mean writing an encyclopedia of lore. It means paying attention to how the world responds to the players. When they make a bold choice, the world changes. When they befriend an NPC, that relationship has weight. When they burn a bridge, consequences ripple. That responsiveness is what elevates your storytelling. It makes players feel like their actions matter, and it keeps them emotionally invested. If you're writing your own setting, fantastic. Lean into that. Develop a one-paragraph origin myth, a handful of core factions, a few quirks or themes that make your world feel different. Then use those details as the backdrop, not the spotlight. Don't make the players sit through lore lectures. Let them discover the lore through gameplay, decisions, and character choices. Another thing great GMs do, they create moments of spotlight. Every session should give each player a chance to feel like this was their scene. Maybe it's a combat that highlights a fighter's clever positioning. Maybe it's a social encounter where the bard's words change everything. Maybe it's just a quiet roleplay moment around the campfire. If you're watching your players and paying attention, you'll start to see what they crave, what kind of moments they lean into. Give them those moments. Let them shine. It doesn't have to be huge, but if everything leaves feeling like something they did mattered, you've nailed it. Now, let's talk about longevity, because being a great GM over one session is easy. Being a great GM over months is where the work really happens. This is where having a strong narrative framework helps. You don't need a railroad, but you do need a sense of shape. Have major events on the horizon. Plan character arcs. Keep a folder of ideas that haven't come up yet. Names, locations, legends, enemies. Because the best campaigns evolve. They don't just continue, they deepen. Let's talk about burnout. It's one of the biggest threats to anyone trying to turn tabletop gaming into a profession. And it hits fast, hard, and often without warning, especially when you're trying to prove yourself, build momentum, and turn this into a full-time income. At first, you're excited. Every game is fresh. Every prep session feels like progress. You're energized by the players, the feedback, the challenge. Then a few weeks go by. You're running 4 nights a week. You're prepping during lunch breaks. Your weekends disappear. You're waking up in the middle of the night thinking about encounter balance or faction politics. You've got messages waiting in Discord and a map that still isn't done. You're tired, but you're committed, and suddenly it starts to feel like a job. Here's the truth. It is a job, but it should never feel like a job you resent. Burnout comes from 2 sources: overextension and lack of boundaries. Let's talk overextension first. Just because you can run 5 games a week doesn't mean you should. Just because a player wants a Sunday session doesn't mean you have to rearrange your weekend. Yes, when you're starting out, there's pressure to say yes to everything, to take every gig, to be available at all times. But that approach doesn't scale. You might run out of bandwidth. Your creativity will dry up. You'll resent your calendar, and the quality of your sessions, the very thing your reputation is built on, will start to slip. So here's a rule. Schedule your sessions around your life, not the other way around. Block off your rest days. Protect your time. Make sure you have space to recharge, create, or just be a person. The second cause of burnout is lack of boundaries, especially with players. It starts small. A player messages you at midnight with a character question. Another sends you 10 pages of backstory. Someone else wants to schedule a private call to go over a homebrew subclass. And before you know it, your off hours are full of unpaid labor. You're a GM, not tech support, not a therapist, not a content editor. You're running a game, and when communication is part of the job, boundaries are what keep it sustainable. Here's how to set them. First, establish expectations in your listing. Include a section that says when you're available for questions and how players should contact you. Be polite, but firm. I respond to messages during regular hours and will follow up before the next session. That kind of language sets a healthy tone. Second, reinforce boundaries when they're tested. If a player crosses a line, even innocently, respond kindly but clearly. Hey, I'm happy to help with that during our next session. I'm offline for the evening, but we can definitely discuss it when you're back at the table. Most players will respect that, and the ones that don't, you probably don't want to build your business around them anyway. Now let's talk recovery. What do you do when burnout has already started? First, scale back. Cut one session. Take a week off if you need to. Tell your players you're human. They'll understand. And if they don't, again, those aren't the people you want long term. Second, simplify your prep. Don't build entire continents for every encounter. Use reusable NPCs. Use modular maps. Trust your improv. Your players aren't grading your prep documents. They care about the experience at the table. Third, remind yourself why you started doing this. Was it the storytelling? The joy of helping someone bring their character to life? The quiet high of a perfectly timed plot twist? Go back to that. Run a one-shot just for fun. Make something weird. Play a game you enjoy, not just the one that pays. Feed your creative self again. Professional doesn't mean joyless. It means reliable. And joy is part of the job too. And when you protect that, your sessions stay vibrant, your players stay engaged, and your burnout stays at bay. Let's talk about managing players. Not just running them through encounters, but managing the relationships you build with the people sitting at your table. Because you're a professional GM, your players aren't just friends showing up to a game night. They're clients. That changes things. It adds a layer of expectation, accountability, and, if you're doing it right, mutual respect. Here's the first truth. Player management starts before the first session. That means setting expectations clearly in your listing, in your session 0, and even in your welcome message. What kind of story are you running? What kind of table culture are you fostering? What do you expect from your players, and what can they expect from you? Be proactive, not reactive. Lay it out early. Let's talk about a few tools that help. 1. Session 0. This doesn't have to be an entire session on its own, though it can be. But at a minimum, you should always take 20 to 30 minutes before your first session to cover group expectations, table rules, tone, pacing, and safety tools. This isn't red tape. It's how you create a shared understanding of what kind of game you're all here to play. 2. A welcome document. You can send this to new players when they join one of your campaigns. It includes things like availability, how to reach you, when to expect recaps or scheduling updates, and links to any relevant tools or tech guides. It's not fancy, but it removes friction and gives players confidence. 3. Safety tools. I know we've mentioned these before, but they bear repeating. Use lines and veils. Use X cards. Use after-session check-ins. When players feel safe, they engage deeper. When they don't, they shut down, or worse, they leave and never say why. Now let's talk about the hard part, handling difficult players. You will, at some point, encounter players who test your boundaries, dominate spotlight time, argue rules, and disrupt the tone of the session. The trick is to handle these moments professionally, not reactively. Start with curiosity, not confrontation. Sometimes what looks like disruptive behavior is just a misunderstanding or a mismatched expectation. Ask questions, clarify, give space for feedback. But if the behavior persists, be clear. Be kind, but firm. This game runs best when everyone has space to contribute. I've noticed some moments when other players aren't getting a chance to speak. Can we work together to adjust that? Or how about this? I know combat optimization is something you enjoy, but this table prioritizes story and pacing. Let's make sure everyone's style is supported. Sometimes all it takes is a check-in. Other times you may have to part ways, and that's okay. You don't have to keep every player. You don't have to tolerate toxic behavior because they're paying. You're running a table, not a hostage situation. Give people a chance to grow, yes, but protect your health of your table, always. Here's another pro tip. Foster collaboration among your players. Encourage them to share spotlight. to ask each other questions in character, to celebrate each other's victories. When the group is invested in each other, not just their own story, the campaign thrives. Also, keep notes, not just about the game, but about the players, what they respond to, what their goals are, what makes them light up. If a player smiles every time they interact with a particular NPC, bring that NPC back. If a player loves mystery, tie a secret to their backstory. These aren't tricks, they're relationship building. And finally, own your mistakes. You will mess up. You'll forget a rule, miss a beat, overlook a player, drop a plot thread. It's inevitable. The difference between a good GM and a great one is how you respond. A simple, "Hey, I missed that. Let me fix it for next game," goes a long way. Players don't expect perfection. They expect presence, effort, and honesty. If you've listened this far, I want to say something directly to you. This is hard work. And the fact that you're here, thinking seriously about what it means to become a professional GM, means you're already doing more than most. This isn't about becoming famous. It's not about getting rich. It's about building something sustainable, something meaningful around a craft you care about. That takes more than just passion. It takes structure, boundaries, consistency, practice, presence. Let's do a quick recap of what we've covered today. We've talked about what it really means to go pro, and why it's not about being the best GM, but about being the right GM for the right players. We broke down how to get up your first listing, how to write a strong bio, how to communicate your style clearly so that players know what they're signing up for. We talked pricing, session structure, player retention, reviews, boundaries, burnout. We dug into what makes a session feel professional and what separates a good GM from a great one. We talked about growing your visibility, building your roster, managing player dynamics, and creating a table culture that actually lasts. If all of this feels like a lot, that's because it is. Professional GMing is not a shortcut to easy money. It's real work. It's creative labor, emotional labor, logistical labor. But if you love it, if you find meaning in it, it's also one of the most rewarding jobs in the world. You get to create laughter, tension, surprise, catharsis. You get to watch players light up as their characters grow, and you get to build something with your own two hands. A table, a world, a community. It's work, but it's worthy work. Now, if you're thinking about starting, here's my advice. Start small. One session, one night, one listing. See how it feels. See what you'll learn. You don't have to launch an empire overnight. Just light the first torch and see what paths it reveals. And if you're already a few steps in, keep going. Keep refining. Keep checking in with yourself. Stay curious. Stay honest. This is a long game, and you'll keep growing every time you sit down behind the screen. Next time on Dice and Quills, we're going to look at the player side of the professional table. What makes a great paying player? How do you help new players succeed in a professional game? What red flags should you watch for? And how can you create an environment where everyone, including you, thrives? It's going to be a practical, honest conversation, and I'm looking forward to it. If you've enjoyed this episode, I'd love if you subscribed, rated the podcast, or shared it with someone who might be starting their own pro GM journey. It helps more than you know. You can also support the show directly. Links are in the show notes. And if you're a pro GM or thinking about becoming one, I'd love to hear your story. Tag me, message me. Let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, sharpen your quills, ready your dice, and remember, the story doesn't start when the dice hit the table. It starts when you decide to run.